The first time you see it, you are 7 years old and brushing your teeth. The mirror shows a version of you that is not brushing its teeth. It is standing still, looking back, older but not by much, maybe 10, maybe 11. Same face, same eyes, same small scar above the left eyebrow from the bicycle incident. Your mother still brings up at family dinners. But the expression is different. The 7-year-old version of you is not capable of the expression on that face. You don't have the name for it yet. You learn it later in a vocabulary unit in 6th grade. The word is resignation. You drop your toothbrush. It hits the sink and bounces once and lands on the tile, and the sound of it is very loud in the small bathroom. She picks it up, rinses it, hands it back to you, tells you to finish. She doesn't look at the mirror long enough to see what you see. She doesn't need to. She already knows her future. She saw it at 7, same as everyone. This is just how the world works. You look into a mirror, and the mirror looks back with the next version of you standing where you are standing, wearing the life you are about to grow into, looking at you with eyes that already know how the gap between now and then gets closed. Most people find it comforting. A compass built into every reflective surface. A fixed point to orient yourself toward. You have never found it comforting. You are 23 now. Your name is Leo, and you have not looked directly into a mirror in 4 months. Not completely avoided. You are not irrational about it. You still use the small one above the bathroom sink, the one that only shows you from the shoulders up if you stand close enough. You have learned the exact distance, 11 inches from the glass. At 11 inches, the frame cuts off at the collarbone and you get just enough to shave, check your teeth, make sure you are presentable enough to move through the world without anyone stopping you to ask if you are okay. 4 months ago, at 12 inches, on a Tuesday morning in November, you saw something, and you took a step back, and you have not taken a step forward since. Here's what everyone knows about mirrors. They do not show you tomorrow. They do not show you next week or next year or the slow daily accumulation of small choices that eventually becomes a life. The mirror is not interested in haircuts or the temporary redness of a bad night's sleep. The mirror shows you the next significant version of yourself. The you that exists after something that matters has happened. After a real threshold has been crossed. Governments have tried to define that more precisely. Scientists have tried. Philosophers have tried for centuries. The best answer anyone has produced is that the mirror shows you yourself at the point where who you are has meaningfully shifted. Most people's mirrors update slowly. Reassuring in the way that knowing the shape of a road ahead is reassuring, even when you can't see every turn. Some people's mirrors move faster. Yours has always moved faster than average. Your mother noticed it first. When you were 9 and the face looking back from the glass was already 15. She mentioned it to the family doctor with the careful casualness of someone who is actually very concerned and has decided that casual is the safer register. The doctor said some mirrors just run hot. Said it with the confidence of someone who had said it before and found that people accepted it. You accepted it. You went home and looked at the 15-year-old in the glass and tried to read the expression. You studied it the way you would study a map in a language you mostly understood. The 15-year-old looked tired. You found out why at 15. Your father left that year. Your mother worked 2 jobs. You learned that the specific exhaustion on a 15-year-old's face is not the exhaustion of staying up too late. It is the exhaustion of understanding, earlier than you were supposed to, that the people you relied on are just people. Tired, limited, doing their best with what they have, which is often not enough, which is no one's fault, which is somehow harder to accept than if it were. The mirror showed you tired at 9. Life gave you the reason at 15. That is how it works. The mirror gives you the shape. You live your way into understanding it. After 15, the update slowed down. You carried an 18-year-old face in the glass for 2 years. Then, 21 for another stretch. Both readable. Both manageable in retrospect. The 18-year-old had a set to the jaw that turned out to mean the scholarship rejection and the year of rebuilding a plan from different materials than you started with. The 21-year-old had something looser in the eyes that turned out to be the relief of finding the rebuilt plan was better than the original. You got used to the system. You got used to reading yourself in advance. You made peace with the compass. Then, 4 months ago, the mirror updated, and you have not been able to look at it directly since. This is what you saw at 12 inches on a Tuesday morning in November. You saw yourself older, not by the usual increment. This was not 25 or 26. This version of you was somewhere in the mid-30s. The face was yours, but lived in the way a house is lived in when it has been through several seasons, and some of them were hard. Lines at the corners of the eyes that were not entirely from smiling. Hair shorter. Shoulders set lower, the way shoulders settle when they have been carrying something long enough to stop noticing the weight. None of that was what made you step back. What made you step back was the expression. Not resignation like at 7. Not the tiredness of 15, not the jaw set of 18, something else. Something you did not have a single clean word for because it was not a single clean thing. It was the face of someone who had come through something and was still deciding what to call it. Someone standing somewhere they did not expect to be standing. Looking back at the distance between here and there, not with grief and not with relief, with something quieter than either, with something that looked like a person who had stopped asking certain questions. Not because the questions were answered, because they had learned to live in the space the questions left behind. You looked at that face for 45 seconds. Then you stepped back to 11 inches, and you have stayed there every morning since. The problem with avoiding your own mirror is that you cannot avoid everyone else's. They are everywhere. Lobby walls, restaurant bathrooms, the backs of elevator doors if the light hits them right. Other people's futures reflected in glass everywhere you turn. And other people looking into them the way people check their phones. Casually, habitually, without the specific dread that has built up behind your sternum over 4 months of managed distance. You notice things now that you did not notice before. The woman at the coffee shop who checks the mirror behind the counter every morning with an expression of practiced neutrality that is covering something. The man in the elevator who glances at his reflection and looks away quickly. The look of someone who saw something and is processing it privately. The way people at parties drift toward reflective surfaces and linger, not out of vanity, just checking. Taking the temperature of what is coming, using the compass the way it was designed to be used. You used to do that. You used to find it grounding. Now the compass is pointing somewhere you don't know how to read, and you are navigating without it, and the navigation is harder than you expected. But also, quietly, more interesting. Because when you don't know what is coming, you start paying attention to what is actually here. The texture of what is in front of you instead of the shape of what is going to replace it. You start noticing things you move through without seeing before. You notice, for instance, a woman named Clara. She works in the same building, different company, different floor, same lobby, same elevator bank, same broken coffee machine in the shared kitchen on the second floor that requires a specific sequence of button presses to produce something drinkable. She has figured out the sequence. You can tell because she always presses the buttons in the right order without looking, the automatic confidence of someone who solved this problem weeks ago and filed it away. You have seen her for months without seeing her. Part of the building, the way the elevator buttons are part of the building. But 4 months ago, around the time you stopped using the compass, you started actually seeing the furniture. She reads actual books, not on a phone. Books with covers that don't tell you much, the kind you pick because you already know what's inside. She argues quietly with the coffee machine even when it cooperates, a running commentary delivered to an appliance that has never once responded and will not start today. She holds doors open for people who are too far away to reasonably expect a held door, which means she ends up standing there longer than makes sense, and she does it without visible frustration, without performing patience. She made a decision a long time ago about how she wants to move through the world, and she just lives it now without thinking about it. You have not spoken to her. What you have done is stop every morning in front of the large mirror in the lobby, not to look at yourself. You stand at 11 inches from every mirror now, close enough for function, too close for the full picture. What you do is watch the lobby reflected behind you, the building doing its morning thing. And sometimes, if the timing is right, you watch Clara come through the revolving door and cross the marble floor and press the elevator button and wait. And you watch her in the glass without turning around. She looks, in the mirror, like someone who is not afraid of what the mirror shows her. That is less common than you would think. The conversation starts because the coffee machine finally gives up. Not dramatically, quietly. The way things quit when they've been tolerating something for a long time and have simply decided not to anymore. It stops mid-cycle and displays a message that says, with the flat honesty of a machine that does not care how this lands, error. Contact maintenance. Clara is standing next to you when this happens. She looks at the screen. She says, it finally gave up. You say, it's been threatening to for weeks. She looks at you. The look of someone recalibrating slightly, updating a category. You notice that too. You say, I press the buttons in a specific order to avoid the third cycle. She says, left, left, right, then hold the center one. You say right, left, then tap the center twice. You look at each other. She says, we've been using completely different sequences, you say, and it worked for both of us, she says. The machine has no idea what it's doing. You say, none of us do. It lands differently than you meant it to, not as a joke about a broken appliance, as something that came up from somewhere lower than the part of you making conversation. She hears the difference. You can tell because the pause before she responds is the pause of someone treating what you said as the thing it actually was. She says, is that a problem, you say? I used to think it was manageable, she says. And now, you say, now I'm not sure managing is the right goal. She is quiet for a moment. Then she looks at the narrow mirror above the hand towel dispenser on the far wall, and she does something you have not seen anyone do in 4 months of watching people interact with reflective surfaces. She doesn't look away. She looks at it the same way she looked at the broken coffee machine. Interested, unhurried. The way you look at something you have decided not to be afraid of. You say, "Doesn't it bother you?" She says, "What?" You say, not knowing what it means, what you're seeing. She looks at you. You've been avoiding yours. It is not a question. Something tightens in your chest. The specific discomfort of being seen accurately by someone who has not been given enough information to see you that clearly. You say, 4 months. She says, "What did you see?" You think about the face, the settled shoulders, the expression without a clean name. The look of someone who stopped asking certain questions, not because the questions were answered, but because they learned to live in the space the questions left behind. You say, "Myself," but further than usual, and I don't know what happened in between. She is quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of someone thinking of the right thing to say, the quiet of someone who already knows what they want to say and is deciding whether now is when they say it. She says, "That's the part you can't see in a mirror anyway." You say, "What part?" She says, "The in-between. The mirror shows you the destination. It doesn't show you who you become on the way there." She picks up her bag from the counter. That part isn't reflected anywhere. That part is just yours. She leaves. The coffee machine hums once, goes silent. You stand in the kitchen alone with the broken machine and the narrow mirror on the far wall and the particular stillness of a room that was just occupied by a conversation that mattered. Then you walk to the mirror, 12 inches. You look. The face looks back, 30-something, lived in. Shoulders low and settled. That expression, the one you have been managing around for 4 months, the one you didn't have a word for and were not sure you wanted one. You look at it now without stepping back. You let your eyes stay on it the way you let your eyes stay on something difficult when you have finally decided that looking away costs more than looking, and you see something you missed the first time. Maybe you missed it because you were afraid. Maybe because fear changes what you see the same way. Distance changes the color of mountains. What you saw at 12 inches in November, what sent you back to 11 inches for 4 months, was a face you read as someone who came through something and wasn't sure survival was the right word. That is not what it is. What it is, now that you are looking without flinching, is the face of someone who stopped needing the mirror to tell them where they were going. Someone who learned, somewhere in the in-between, to navigate by something other than the reflection. Someone who found in the not knowing something they couldn't find in the knowing. Something that looks, when you let yourself see it clearly, like a person who finally got out of their own way. You look at that face for a long time. Then you step back, not to 11 inches, not to safety distance. Just back. The way you step back from something you've looked at long enough to keep. You go get coffee from the place on the corner. You sit at a table by the window. Outside, the city moves the way cities move, without asking permission, without showing anyone the destination, just forward into a future that no mirror can fully map. The in-between is yours. Every uncomfortable morning of it, every quiet conversation in a broken kitchen of it, every step taken without knowing exactly where it lands. It turns out that is not something to manage. It turns out that is the whole point.